And then we sit here in silence, Jack, for 3 minutes.
Yeah. I'm just looking to see how many people. So far, there's only 2 people plus us.
Yep, so far.
Yeah.
We'll give it a little bit of time. They probably get to watch you and I chat and small talk and whatever, you know. Jack, let me ask you, did you ever get a chance to work with the Green Bay Packers?
No, but the interesting thing about the Green Bay Packers is the stadium, because somebody I went to school with at UMass decided to go into the culinary business, and he now has the #1 healthy food choice at the Green Bay Packer Stadium. So he's been rated #1 for years now. That's
Cool.
one of his major facilities.
Very cool. Very cool. I spent a lot. I lived in Green Bay till I was about 21. You know, grew up there, high school and stuff. And we spent a lot of time at Lambeau. And back, you know, I was born in '72, so probably late '70s, early '80s. They actually had a kids section. So
Really?
a whole section of Lambeau Field that was all like 15-year-olds and younger, if you can imagine that. And the parents were off, you know, drinking beer and eating brats and cheese curds in their seats. They didn't have to deal with their kids for the whole game.
Yeah, that's amazing. Of course, in this day and age, nobody would ever trust that situation. So, yeah.
I don't think so.
But I have worked with some individual Green Bay Packers, not with the team, the individuals, especially when they're getting cut. That's when people come out of the woodwork. Like they think they're going to play for the rest of their lives. When they get cut, it's like, what? You know, what am I going to do now? You know? So I worked with a lot of people like that, and there were a couple of Green Bay Packers I remember who were desperate because they were getting cut and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I will wrap this story up very quickly, but they're starting strong safety. When I was a kid, a guy named Johnny Gray. Johnny was my soccer coach in the YMCA league, and so we became friends with Johnny. And you know, he had a son my age. My mom and dad became friends with Johnny and his wife Barbara. So we'd go hang out at Johnny's van after the game, and I'm a little kid, you know, 8, 9 years old, catching passes next to James Lofton.
Oh my goodness, that must have been very exciting.
I had no idea how cool it was, you know.
Yeah.
And I brought Johnny to show and tell in 3rd grade.
That's amazing. That's amazing that he did that for you. That's wonderful.
Very cool. He was injured at the time, so he had nothing better going on, I guess. But yeah, he came to show and tell for me and my brother, who was maybe in 1st grade at the time.
Oh, that's great.
That was pretty funny. So, Jack, we are right at 2:00 Eastern time, and so you know, we're going to give it a little bit longer. So there's people trickling in. We've got some.
I don't mind if you want to wait a little bit. I'll tell you another story. A Major League Baseball team that I'm fond of hired a major coach the other day, and I couldn't believe it because that coach, when he was playing baseball, was one of my clients. And what I know about him, if they knew, they would have never hired him. I mean, this guy is a loose cannon, ready to come unglued. And I guess they vetted him the best they could, and they decided he'd be a great bench coach for this major league team. But he is just an explosion ready to happen.
Wow. Well, I guess he's fortunate for patient client, you know, privileges, and you know, you gotta keep them.
He used to tell me in spring training that he wanted to kill some of his teammates. And I said, "You don't mean that literally?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What?" And he said, "They're trying to take food out of my family's mouth. They're trying to win the position over me." I mean, this is what the guy was talking about back then.
It's celebrated, but I suppose there's quite a line you can cross with that as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So cool, Jack. Well, we're a minute after 2. And so, you know, we still got some people trickling in, but I think we could kick off if you're ready to do that.
Sure.
Very cool. Well, give me about 30 seconds or a minute, and then you can take the show away, Jack. But for everybody who's here, first off and foremost, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join myself, Charlie Van Derven, and the phenomenal world-renowned psychologist, Dr. Jack Singer. Jack and I have known each other about a year, I guess, at this point. Jack, we've been chatting back and forth, and we've been talking about doing this webinar together. And I'm glad we dragged our feet a little bit, Jack, because this webinar comes at a time, in my opinion, that probably is more important than any other time of the year. We've all obviously come through a crazy year in 2020. Who knows what 2021 has in store for us? The market's done in my opinion, surprisingly well, given everything that we're going through. But we're coming into holidays. There's a lot of people that are in a, kind of a lot of pain. It's a difficult time for many people, including financial professionals. And there's a lot of stress in this profession. So I really think that talking about stress and channeling that stress and building a resilience couldn't be better placed than, approaching the holidays in a crazy year like we've had. My friend, Dr. Jack Singer, like I mentioned earlier, is a world-renowned psychologist. Jack got started working with professional sports teams. And one thing you told me, Jack, when we were getting to know each other, was that I always respected, was you'd only work with one major professional team in each category per year, because, well, you don't want to give them an advantage and then give that to their competitors as well. So
Right.
I always respected that. So, whether it's NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, whatever your sports flavor is, Jack's probably worked with your favorite team or players or coaches from that favorite team. And so we were just exchanging some stories about my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. In 2008, 2009, some major financial firms reached out to Jack. Obviously, we were all going through the housing crisis at that time, a stressful time for many people in our profession, in our industry. And so Jack really started working in the financial services industry at that time. And Jack, the things you've done in this industry have been amazing. And with all of that intro, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so people can see in a little bit bigger, in a bigger light, in a bigger frame. And I'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thanks to your wonderful team at Social Advisors, one of the best companies I've ever learned about in what you do, for inviting me to provide you with this very important webinar, which I call the Financial Advisors Proven Blueprint for Building Resiliency and Thriving During Challenging Times. Now, why do I say proven blueprint? Because it's the same blueprint, it's a piece of the same blueprint that I've used with 3 Olympic gold medal winners and hundreds of elite athletes, all over the country. So it is proven, and everything I'm telling you today is cutting edge, research-based, psychological methods for reducing the stress in your life. Just like elite athletes, I consider all financial advisors to be champions, but most of you have not yet succeeded to live up to your potential, just like most athletes, because of the same issues that plague athletes who have a ton of talent, but are hampered by lack of confidence, self-doubts, and mainly stress, which will cut into your performance always. So what you'll learn today is cutting-edge psychological research showing you how to finally take charge of your stress and minimize it, regardless of the challenges you face. I'll speak for about 30 minutes today, then we'll have Q&A. And if you have any personal questions you'd rather not ask in the chat, you'd rather talk to me personally about it, just send me an email at drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. And while I have you, there's some other bonuses I'm providing for you today, and that is I will draw 5 names from people who send me an email who's interested in a free coaching session. No commitment, no nothing, just complimentary coaching session. I'll pull 5 from those who email me, and you get a free coaching session. And also, everything I'm going to talk to you about today is in my most recent book, The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide, the only book of its kind. And it's a $37 book. But today, for anybody who emails me, I'll send you the book, the email version, for $15. So that's a good bargain as well. And since I'm on a roll here, the last thing is I have a course that you can get 12 continuing education credits for, called Actionable Skills to Develop the Mindset of a Champion Financial Services Professional. And I'll give you a 20% discount on anyone who's interested in learning more about the course and signing up for it. So you've got all these bonuses. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'm just going to try to talk to you and teach you what I know about this, because it'll really make a difference that you can put to work right away. I'll teach you the #1 cause of any stress that you experience and how to eradicate it. Now you may say, well, how does he know what the #1 cause is of my stress? You'll see. I know the #1 cause of any stress and how to eradicate it, because stress is one of the most important determinants of how you perform in your career. And it also is a determinant of how long you live. I do a client event for your clients called How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would. It's a funny title, but it's a serious subject of the psychology of life extension. how to live happier and healthier for the rest of your life. And stress is a major reason that people either do or don't live long and healthy lives. And as I said, this is all part of a proven blueprint for success that I've used with 3 Olympic gold medal winners and hundreds of athletes as a professional sports psychologist over the last 40 years. Then I'm going to teach you how to engage a warp speed mental toughness method. Now, I know that when we talk about the vaccine for the virus, it was referred to as a warp speed finding the vaccine, but I didn't get this from them. I used this term in my book, and I used this term years ago, a warp speed mental toughness method for quickly reducing any stress, any self-doubt, any worry, any anxiety, whenever those emotions creep in. You think that would be important to learn? Of course. Okay, so Charlie, if you could put up that poll.
Okay, there we go, Jack. Launching poll. So we'll leave this up for just a couple of seconds. If you have any issue with the poll question or anything, please just put it in the chat box.
And I'm reading the poll question for you. So, is your stress caused by market volatility and uncertainty? Is it caused by the ongoing pandemic and its consequences, dealing with difficult clients during these challenging times, the current post-election political climate, or perhaps all of the above?
All right, we got some votes rolling in, Jack, so we'll leave this up for just, maybe another 15 seconds or so.
Okay.
It's, the winner so far is that number 5, all the above. Is that surprising to you, Jack?
No, because all of the, so.
No poll. Michael says no poll. Michael, got about 9 of our attendees.
Well, it's okay. I don't want to take a lot of time on it. But most people respond with all of the above, that market volatility causes them stress, that the ongoing pandemic and the unknowns about it cause stress, that dealing with difficult clients causes stress, and not knowing what the post-election political climate will be. Well, I've got news for all of you. None of these things cause your stress. 0. I know you're surprised and you're saying, what? How can that be? And I'm going to explain why. This is probably the most important discovery in the field of psychology and psychotherapy in the past 50 years. Negative, self-defeating emotions such as stress, anxiety, frustration, impatience, anger, none of those emotions, or any happy emotions for that matter, are ever caused by events or situations that occur in your life. What causes the stress, the anxiety, the frustration, the impatience are the conversations you have in your head about the event or situation. It's what you say to yourself, that little voice in your head that talks to you all the time. Unfortunately, most of the time it's negative. That voice and what you say to yourself, what are you saying to yourself about dealing with difficult clients during these challenging times? Are you saying, I hope this person never calls me, or I wish I didn't have this client, even though I like the money I make from the client? The client's a pain in my neck. Or are you saying, the ongoing pandemic, what if it never ends? These are the kinds of things you could be saying to yourself that would cause stress, anxiety, frustration, impatience, and all of that. But it's not the event itself. So why is this good news? Because you can learn to control, first to recognize, and then control the conversations you have in your head. And that's the big key that we're going to talk about today. In my 40-year career as a professional sports psychologist and clinical, by the way, psychologist, I've helped hundreds of elite athletes and financial advisors who've never lived up to their potential. And they kept bringing stress on themselves because they never took charge of the internal conversations that went on when unfortunate events took place, like losing a client, or having someone not show up for a client meeting, or the market goes volatile and your clients call you complaining about their portfolio. We can list hundreds of cases of situations, compliance issues, fiduciary issues. All of these things are events. What causes stress is how you interpret them in your mind. So here's the key takeaway. The conversations inside your head that are either toxic or nutritious, that's what I call them, determine your emotional health, your emotional challenges, your physical health, and your behavioral responses. So most of the deficiencies, limitations, and problems that any of us have are rooted in our self-talk. And that's the big discovery in the field of psychology and psychotherapy. Used to be, when I was in graduate school learning how to be a psychologist, it used to be thought that People have emotional issues because of long lost conflicts that haven't been resolved, things from their childhood. That's all baloney. The conflicts we have, the emotional problems we have, it's all according to the conversation we had recently about an event that upset us. So once we recognize what those events are, we can really fix it quicker. So in the beginning, when I was a therapist, it might take months and months of therapy to help someone overcome their issues. Now it takes weeks. When I'm coaching advisors, it takes weeks. We can identify the problems quickly and move on from it. That little voice in your head, does it lack self-confidence? And does it have fear of, say, failure or the unknown? Or does that little voice lead to higher self-esteem, which some advisors have, encouraging you to move forward during difficult times? The best way to build resilience and thrive despite any challenges you face is to take charge of that little voice. Let me give you an example from my own life that I think will be of interest to you. It was a gorgeous day in San Diego as my wife and I were boarding a plane for Hawaii. I was fortunate enough to be asked to keynote a conference, a major conference of high producing financial advisors. And I was all excited about going there for a free vacation for 4 days, plus they were paying me a speaker's fee. So what's wrong with that? That was great. Everyone on the plane is heading to Maui, so everybody's happy. The plane takes off. My wife is sitting to my left at the window and I'm on the aisle. She gets up and uses the restroom. She comes back and I get up and I use the restroom. And then I come back, and when I sit down, the woman to the right of me across the aisle, a young woman, is feverishly writing on one of these napkins that they give you in the airlines when you get a beverage. And she's looking at me as she's writing. So I'm thinking, now, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't had a note passed to me by a female since 6th grade. And in fact, it happened so rarely, I can tell you who it was. Sally Bonelli passed me a note in 6th grade. That's probably the last note any female ever passed to me. So my fantasies are taking off. Wow, the plane just took off. This lady's young enough to be my granddaughter. And she sees I'm with someone, what could she possibly want to say to me? And I can't wait to get the note. And I pick it up, and here's what the note says. Sir, I'm really sorry to embarrass you, but I think you'd like to know that the toilet seat cover's hanging out of the back of your pants. What? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I had a choice at that moment, a choice. I could have taken that situation and said to myself, oh my God, you idiot. You're going to be mortified for the rest of this trip. And I could have spent the next 6-hour flying time facing my wife to the left and cranking my neck in one direction so I wouldn't have to look at her. But no, I said to myself, I said, young lady, don't worry about embarrassing me. On the contrary, for every job I'm going to give from now on, you see, and what happened is something I can use.
Looks like we're having, Jack, we had a little bit of technical.
Cell. Brain does thoughts and stopping toxic thoughts. So that's what we do. Our intelligence is below the surface, unconscious, and we don't know about them. And these are thinking beliefs that have developed since we were adolescents, and we don't know that they're traps, and we don't think about how they're going to lead to problems, so we don't do anything about them. Let me give you some example. And these are thinking habits and patterns that we develop from our parents, sometimes from teachers, other people who are well-meaning, but they're not healthy, and they sabotage our performance, our health, and even our longevity. For example, asking for help is a sign of weakness. Or we're all products of our past history, so since I've always been this way, I can't change anything. I'm stuck with who I am. Or there's a perfect way to do everything, and it's going to be a catastrophe if I can't figure that out. Anything short of perfect is failure. A lot of people believe that. Or everyone who knows me believes that I'm more talented, smarter, or successful than I believe that I am. And it's only a matter of time before they realize this. And I'll be mortified. That's what we call the imposter syndrome. All of this, again, is in the book. But ladies and gentlemen, you're not a prisoner of your past behavioral habits or even your DNA. You can learn to change things. So asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength, actually. Many of you financial advisors have had mentors who've meant a lot to you. There's not a perfect way to do things because we can never accomplish a perfect way. So a lot of people are tied up with, if it's not perfect, I'm a failure. We call that all or nothing thinking. And most likely you are just as talented as everyone thinks you are. It's only that you don't have any confidence in yourself or your self-esteem is low. which makes you believe that you're being an imposter, and sooner or later they'll figure it out. The average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. Think about that, 60,000 thoughts a day. And research show that the vast majority are negative and lead to self-doubt, worry, insecurity, lack of confidence. And negative emotions resulting from toxic self-talk built in there to protect us when we had to fight for our food and we had to beat off predators to stay alive. That's the reptilian brain, the original brain, that part that the emotions get tied up in, and it wires in 1,000 times faster. So here's the way it works again. A situation occurs, you immediately give toxic thoughts about that situation to yourself. The amygdala, the reptilian brain, is activated. And what happens when that is activated? You get into what you've all heard about in biology, the fight or flight situation. Every time you allow toxic thoughts into your mind, and here's why. Since the number one priority of the brain is safety and to preserve your life, anything out of the comfort zone is analyzed and the brain decides if there's danger. So you can be upset at traffic. You can be upset because you ordered the food that didn't come correctly when it was delivered. You can be upset at clients. You can be upset at the market. Each one of these things, the brain will think is an emergency because it doesn't have a reason to think it isn't. The default position of the brain to protect you is turn on the fight or flight nervous system. Let's not take any chances and let's turn on the fight or flight nervous system. Now, why is that a problem? Because a lot of things happen when that nervous system turn on, chemically and electronically and hormonally. A lot of things happen which are necessary to save your life. But one of the things that happens is it shuts down every system that's not needed at that moment to save your life. So it can marshal all of the energy into one thing, and that is preserving you, helping you flee or fight, get away from the danger. So if you're thinking toxic thoughts 30 times a day, say traffic, your kids, the news, impatience, dealing with clients, each time you do that, you're marshaling all of the energy from other parts of your body into the fight or flight nervous system. And remember this, one of those parts of the body is your immune system. Every time you have a negative or toxic thought, it shuts down your immune system because right then it's trying to save your life. The immune system doesn't have to be activated at that moment. So one of the chapters in my book is how stress can kick the health out of you. And so let me give you, based on research, and maybe this will strike home with a lot of you or relatives of yours or people you know. Again, this is all in the book. Examples of common illnesses and diseases that are either caused by or exacerbated by our toxic thinking, which leads to stress and turning on the fight or flight nervous system. Well, if there's real danger and your toxic thoughts lead to the stress, then blood should be leaving the GI tract to move out to the big muscles of the legs and arms to prepare you to flee or fight. Well, if every time you're thinking something negative all day, 30, 40, 50 times a day, blood is leaving the GI tract and flowing out to the muscles and legs, that's when people develop chronic digestive problems, including gastritis, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, vomiting, weakness, because the blood is leaving the GI tract every time you do that. Secondly, because muscles tighten up when you're in the fight or flight nervous system to give you the best strength to flee or fight, that causes neck and upper back pain, migraine headaches, tension headaches, jaw clenching headaches, fatigue. Third, because you need energy for fight or flight, every time you have these toxic thoughts that lead to stress, glucose spills into the bloodstream. Well, what do you suppose happens if someone is constantly spilling glucose into his or her bloodstream all day, 7 days a week, because they get irritated or upset by all of these things that they can't control that are upsetting? That's one of the known causes or exacerbators of diabetes. And we can go on and on. Blood pressure rises, that gives you cardiovascular problems, kidney problems, all of these things that doctors frequently cannot find a reason for or a cause for, so they give you medication because they're missing the boat. What's missing is this person is causing their own stress by their toxic thinking. That's where the psychologist comes in to determine that. So the chronic worrier or anxious person triggers to spill all kinds of the bloodstream. And here's another one that many of you can identify with. Adrenaline is one of the endocrine factors that increases when you're in the fight or flight. Why? Because adrenaline makes you alert, and you have to be alert to preserve your life and save yourself during dangerous situations. Well, if you're constantly doing this during the day and squirts of adrenaline are going into your bloodstream, guess what? You have insomnia because you can't sleep if adrenaline is in your bloodstream, keeping you alert. That's why start off by having difficulty falling asleep, and then many of them also seem to get up between 2 or 3 in the morning. This is the adrenaline that's causing that from the negative thoughts about either what happened during the day or what you're worried about is going to happen the next day. So in short, we can look at any major system in the body and find evidence of symptoms being caused in whole or in part by too much activation of this stress response, fight or flight nervous system. And you can see how really important it is to take charge of your toxic thoughts for both your career and your health. Well, I like to say the only barrier between your dreams and your reality is that negative voice that you haven't yet begun to control. Examples of anything starting with what if, the two worst words ever put together in the English language, as far as I'm concerned, because they're always followed by something negative. Or I shouldn't have done this, or I hope I don't do that, or what if this happens to me? That's the examples of negative thoughts that we have. So, and one way that you can realize that how the importance of our thinking is on our body is think about the placebo effect. As you know, when they're trying to develop a new drug, they take a random sample of the people that they have in their pool of people, and they give half of them the real drug and half of them a sugar pill, which is called a placebo. Has no beneficial effect on the body whatsoever. Then why in most of these studies do 20 or 30% of the people with the placebo get better? How could that happen? Because they think they're taking the drug, and that positive thought produces positive chemicals, endorphins in their body that actually stimulate and lead to the pharmacy within to cure itself. In fact, in all of the cases of athletes I've worked with and advisors I work with, I make hypnotic recordings for them. Why do I do that? Because hypnosis is like taking a drug that you think is going to help you. If you convince yourself, it starts to work in that direction. And we find that using hypnosis, people get dramatically better very rapidly, much more than just reading about it or thinking about it. I could give you plenty of examples of that, but we don't have time for that here, maybe in a future webinar. So what we have to do is recognize and challenge destructive, toxic trigger thoughts that lead to self-sabotage, self-condemning, self-weakening, self-negative. Often at the core of these thoughts are the belief patterns, the iceberg core beliefs that I talked to you about. But here's what you can do about it. Here's one of my warp speed techniques. By the way, my book, The Financial Known to Mankind, but I'm going to give you one of the best that even all the athletes said worked beautifully for them. And this is my 7-step mental toughness strategy for quickly reducing stress, self-doubt, worry, anxiety, whenever these emotions creep in. I use this with all of the advisors I work with. What is mental toughness? It's the skill that separates good performance from championship performance. It involves looking at every challenge as an opportunity and the ability to bring your A game consistently, the ability to bounce back quickly from any adversity, such as dealing issues with the pandemic and things like that. So whenever you experience a negative emotion, anxiety, fear, upset, impatience, frustration, you name it, any negative emotion, here's what you do. Step number one, write down what that emotion is so you realize what you're talking about. Step two, write down the thoughts that preceded you recognizing you were feeling that way. What were you thinking? So if the negative emotion is anxiety, and then you think about what was I thinking? Perhaps the thought was, I can't believe that my secretary told me that client is upset at me. I don't really want to talk to him. Number three, we want to stop the thoughts dead in their tracks. And the best way to do that is to put a rubber band on your wrist, not a tight rubber band, the fat kind that come in the mail that sit loosely on your wrist. That's called the number 64 rubber band if you want to go into a store and buy that rubber band. Snap the rubber band as many times as you need to get your subconscious mind to realize I need to stop this thought because the little pain you get is negative. Once you've stopped the thought, let's calm your body down. And you do that by, this is step number 4, you do that by taking deep breaths through your diaphragm. Now, how do you do that? Your diaphragm sits behind your stomach. So if you fold your hand and you breathe in through your nose to the count of 4 and hold it for 4, your stomach should expand when you do that. And then you breathe out through your mouth to the count of 7 like you're blowing through a straw. Let's practice that. I'm going to say go and we'll do that. Go in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Out through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's how professional singers and musicians learn to breathe. That is a calming kind of breathing, whereas most of us breathe where only our shoulders are moving, and that's a shallow breathing, which causes more anxiety and changes the pH of your blood to give you more anxiety. So diaphragmatic breathing, easy to learn, just practice it while you're watching TV. That's step number 4. Step number 5, challenge the thoughts that led to all of this aggravation by asking yourself the following kinds of questions. Where's the evidence to support my anxiety-producing thoughts? What's the probability that what I'm afraid of is actually going to happen? Could I be exaggerating this situation in my mind? Am I just being emotional and not being logical? Am I turning a minor situation into a major catastrophe? Is there an alternative? What will happen next? Are my conclusions based on emotions rather than facts? So once you've done that, you've challenged the thoughts. Most of the time, you're going to find that you can challenge those thoughts very effectively. So if the thought was, oh, I don't want to hear from this client. I heard the client's angry. One way to challenge the thought is, I've dealt with this client before. I know how to take care of the client and reassure the client based on the strategies that we've done together. I'm going to do that because part of my job as a financial advisor is to give people peace of mind and let them feel secure. I'm going to do that. Do I like dealing with these kinds of clients? I can do this and I'll do it, and the problem will be over instead of me procrastinating and not dealing with it. And the next to the last step, step number 6, we want to disrupt the toxic thoughts immediately and replace them with healthy dialogue. It's like we're counterpunching them with healthy dialogue. So example, if your thought was, is the economy going to reopen in 2021, or are we going to close down again and then I'm going to have market problems to deal with my clients? Instead of having that thought, when you recognize it, change it to something like this. I remain focused on my core investment values for my clients and realize that I have the skills and tools to help fight market volatility. I proactively do virtual meetings and provide information for my clients to feel safe. Those are the kinds of things you can do. And by the way, I do a client event, especially during these days, called How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would, which is like my mental wellness or my mental wealth workshop for clients. So why not provide a value added for your clients? And won't they want to bring everyone they can think of to hear a nationally renowned psychologist teach them how to live better and longer? You bet. So if you want information on that, Testimonials from advisor groups who've used me, drjack at advisingtheadvisors.com. Portfolios and grow my business during COVID and the current political situation in the United States. Change that to something like this. My clients need my wealth management and planning services now more than ever. I'll strategize with each client according to his or her family goals, and with the guidance of Charlie Van Derven and his team at Social Advisors, I now have a marketing and prospecting strategy designed to create a steady stream of revenue growth for my business despite COVID or the political winds. So there you have a nice commercial for Charlie and his wonderful team. One final example. Life balance when I'm working from home and having to deal with my family 24/7. Why not change it to something like this? During this pandemic, I've gotten closer and spent more time with my family. I will be assertive regarding the space and time I need while also recognizing their needs. This can turn out to be a great thing for me, and I'll be able to formulate a work-life balance that works for all of us. And once you've changed those thoughts, you anchor the whole thing by another deep breath, a diaphragmatic breath, and that takes care of everything, and you calm down and the emotions that you had in the beginning melt away. Let me give you another example of something you can do at bedtime, a simple exercise. You complain to me that you have trouble sleeping. Here's a simple exercise. Because so many of you focus on negative events or anticipated negative events leading to toxic thoughts, especially when you're trying to fall asleep. What happened during the day? How am I going to handle what I anticipate tomorrow, and so forth? And you're waking up between 2 and 3. What you need to do is change the focus to positive, nutritious thoughts at bedtime. So here's a very simple one that's very powerful and effective. What are the 3 things that went well today? Think about 3 things that went well today. You may want to write them down on a notepad next to your bed. And especially, what role did I play in that success? It doesn't have to be business related. Anything. My children did this. My partner said this, what have you. Give yourself complete credit. Don't tell yourself you were just lucky. Start focusing on positive things that you do and positive things that happen in your life. Remember, you're all champions. And once you change the thoughts that have undermined your confidence and have increased your stress, that true champion will emerge consistently. So the 3 R's for success over stress are: recognize your specific self-limiting beliefs and the resultant self-talk that leads to your stress. Retain a simple plan for quickly stopping toxic self-talk, like my mental toughness routine. And then re-energize and yourself with nutritious self-talk, and just watch your stress melt away. Don't forget my 3 bonuses. Just email me, drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com, if you want free coaching, 20% discount on the unique course that I have for 12 continuing education credits, or if you want to learn more about my client event or you want the book. Well, there's 2 types of speakers, Charlie, that people can do without: those who never stop to think and those who never think to stop. So I'm going to stop at this point and open it up for questions.
Yeah, Jack, and there's a Q&A tab at the bottom of the Zoom browser. So if you got some questions, please put them in that Q&A tab, and we'll wait a second there. Jack, give me the name of the book again.
The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide.
Thank you. We did have just a little bit of technical difficulty throughout. Not a I don't think a big deal, but it cut you off right when you were saying the name of the book. So I want to make sure that we got that out there again.
Good. I can see in the chat there's a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Robert asked, what was the second R?
The second R, you mean in the script that I just gave you, where I said, here's what you can do? The 3 R's?
Yep.
Okay. So the second R is retain a simple plan for quickly stopping your toxic self-talk. So that's the mental toughness routine. So first you recognize the beliefs that have caused your self-talk to be toxic, then you stop it using mental toughness, then you challenge all of that and rejuvenate yourself with nutritious self-talk, as in the examples I gave.
Wonderful. Okay. We got a couple others, Jack, if you don't mind taking a few moments. You mentioned that you teach financial advisors the same blueprint for success as world-class athletes. Tell us more about the work that you do with advisors.
Well, before COVID, I was a keynote speaker at their conferences, and now we do it virtually. And frequently, advisor groups will have me come in to work in the office for, do full day training and things like that. It could be for any number of subjects I have, all related to stress and reducing stress and becoming a champion. I also coach advisors when I have hours that are available. So that's why I'm giving a free coaching session. I have a little time available for these people. And then, I do the client event. Now we're doing it virtually. So, I realized when I got into this business working with financial professional, Charlie, that most client events are a waste of money. It's a plate licking situation in the back of a restaurant and people come maybe for a free meal, but they don't drag their friends and relatives usually and nothing happens. So I decided, why not provide something of value? So I came up with this program, How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would, so that people can provide their clients with real value. I'm going to teach them how to live longer and better. And a nationally renowned psychologist teaching them how to live longer and better. Who wouldn't want to invite their guests, friends, and relatives? And so the typical response of one of these guests is, wow, my advisor doesn't do anything like this. Your advisor really cares about you. Maybe I need to rethink who I'm doing my wealth management with.
Yeah, and Jack, I will that there was actually a question about the event too. So you wrap that up in that statement. I'm going to tell you, we got one more question here, Jack, and maybe some others will come back in. But I obviously can't see our attendees, but I don't know if you can see me in the window while you're talking. I'm scribbling, man. I'm making notes. So the value that you bring at that event. Just in our 30 minutes today, every time we talk, I learn more from you. So I appreciate that.
You're quite welcome. And by the way, someone very correctly in the chat box put fear, F-E-A-R, could stand for false evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
one of my colleagues on the speaking circuit, Zig Ziglar, came up with that. It is because about 99% of the things we're afraid of are things that will never happen. We just think, what if they happen? And then we start reacting as if they did.
So much info. Jack, we got one more question here. How long does it take to change like a core belief system? I think you refer to it as the iceberg.
Yeah, iceberg core beliefs. Well, you'd be amazed at how rapidly we can change it, because most people who aren't consciously aware that they've had these beliefs almost their whole life, when they start saying, yeah, doesn't everyone think that way? And isn't that true? When they start realizing, no, there are different ways to believe. You're not a prisoner of your past history. We can always change what we're doing. And you're not necessarily genetically locked up with anything. You can learn to behave in different ways. Then it starts evaporating away, and people try new ways of thinking and stopping themselves whenever they catch themselves in one of those situations. An example would be, a lot of advisors I work with have trouble asserting themselves. You'd wonder why that would happen, since they have to deal with clients and things like that. But they get intimidated sometimes by their clients, especially very wealthy, powerful clients, and they want to avoid confrontation. So they get manipulated to doing things they don't want to do, changing their core values around investments and things like that. So I train people on how to assert yourself, not being aggressive, but just being assertive. You're the one in charge of this plan. Don't get yourself manipulated into doing something you don't really want to do just because you want to keep the client.
That's amazing, Jack. Well, Jack, we don't have any further questions. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes, and for those of the attendees that are not familiar with social advisors, I'll give a brief little introduction. We've got a giveaway as well, and so I'm going to share a couple of slides. But before I jump into that, Jack, I know you said you'd hang out for this 5 or 7 minute quick little jump for social advisors. I want to thank you sincerely for taking the time with, little old me, right? Jack, you're one of the nicest guys I know in this industry. You're a wealth of information. I'm excited to do more similar events going into 2021 with you, because every time we talk, I gain so many nuggets, and I know that the folks that attend the events do as well. So if I can, nobody else is on here besides me, everybody's watching, but my huge applause on behalf of everybody who's attended today as well. So with that, Jack, I'm going to jump into just a quick little PowerPoint slide. I'm going to share just a bit of information about social advisors and tell you about one product that we have that is really effective at helping my friends who are doing content marketing to get a lot more exposure for their content. So Social advisors at the core of it, Jack, you know this well, but for the attendees that aren't familiar with us, we help financial advisors with business development. I've been working with advisors since, oh gosh, 1998, I guess. So we're going on a little plus, a little more than 2 decades here. Social advisor about seven years old. And essentially what we do is we help advisors with a 4-step business development plan. Much of what we do is attracting people through LinkedIn strategies, content marketing, webinars, and CRM integration. Today, just for my brief presentation, I'm going to talk about that step 3. Pretty easy for us to choose a niche, and we can help with that. Step 2, creating awareness within that niche. The most difficult part of business development is nurturing and building rapport within this growing network of people that fit your niche, right? That can be a 3-month process. That can be a, in some cases, 3 to 5 year process. But the most important thing we have to do is build trust, and content marketing is a huge part of that trust equation. Now, as more and more advisors flock to platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn, and of course, email marketing for their content marketing, it becomes a much, much noisier environment. So we help advisors create custom content plans that quite frankly blow the socks off of that network and stand apart from some of what you see with the firm approved content, which is safe and canned and doesn't necessarily engage an audience and a network like custom content does. Now, there's some issues there, of course. There always is. We work in a very compliance regulatory environment, right? That pre-approved content that most firms make available is typically third-party links, right? Links back to the firm website, links back to articles in Forbes or US News or wherever those links may go. Now, what you as an advisor need to understand is those third-party links are actually working against you. So if you think of the way that a platform like LinkedIn or Facebook makes money, LinkedIn's case, they make money in 2 ways. Upgraded premium services like Sales Navigator. If you're familiar with that, that's an upgraded, awesome sales tool associated with LinkedIn. And they make money through ad sales. Now, as it applies to ad sales, it's important that these platforms retain as many sets of eyeballs as possible. So if you're in LinkedIn building an ideal network around your niche, you're sharing content consistently, but the content that you're sharing is those third-party links, pre-approved stuff from the firm, you're actually working against LinkedIn when you're driving those eyeballs away from the platform. The result of that, and some of you are sharing some of that pre-approved content will know this, is that you get very little engagement on that content and you get very little exposure with that content because LinkedIn doesn't want to drive that traffic away. So you're actually working against their best interest. Now, if you're going to create customized content, there's a variety of types of content you can create. We can help you create. We've just got to be thinking a couple weeks ahead. The most difficult thing about compliance for most advisors that we work with is just the time it takes for approval of that content. We know how to write for a compliant environment. So we just have to be thinking, 2 weeks, 4 weeks ahead in that content marketing. So I encourage you, have some forethought with the content that you create and make sure that you get that out in front of compliance a couple weeks ahead of when you want to share it. Now, LinkedIn typically limits exposure. We talked about that a little bit. This is a post that I shared of my friend Chuck Hammond. It was a link outside of LinkedIn. You can see, I've got a network of approaching 8,000 or 9,000 people. 159 people saw this post when I posted it, who knows, several months ago. What we've done, social advisors, we actually started working with 5 agencies around the world. There's 3 in the US, there's 2 in the UK, there's 1 in Australia. We've looked at the issue behind content sharing on LinkedIn and the limitation of exposure, and we've created a little piece of software that's designed to help content creators gain mass exposure for the content they create. Now, if all you're doing is sharing that pre-approved third-party article, this is not for you. But if you're taking the time to create, pardon me, skipping ahead already. If you're taking the time to create thoughtful content, writing blogs, creating videos, infographics, whatever that might be, we've created this software called Post Party. Like I say, it's in conjunction with 5 other agencies around the world. And that's important that they're a part of Post Party because what we do is we focus specifically on financial services. these other agencies bring other industries into post-party. And here's how post-party works. We run about 30 post-parties for people that subscribe to the software, and I'll show you the link here in a moment. We run about 30 post-parties a month. And for those people that subscribe to the software, they're all scheduled out so you know when they're coming. For those subscribers, an hour ahead of each post-party, you get an email that says there's a post-party about to begin. Even as one of the creators of this software, there's 30 post-parties. I might use 5 or 6 a month is all it is. So I don't use all of them. You can use as many or as few as you want. Now, if you sign up for that post-party, you've got some content ready. At the top of the hour, you're going to get another email that says the post-party is starting. And all you do is you go to LinkedIn, you make your post, you copy the link to your post, and then you post that in the software. Now, the software automatically takes that post, that link, and distributes it to 14 people. At the same time, you get a link to 14 people's posts. And because we've got an agency partner in Australia, to be stereotypical, that might be a kangaroo farmer or a didgeridoo maker or something like that, right? It really doesn't matter who that person is necessarily. They've got a 2-hour window. 14 people have a 2-hour window to react to your post. At the same time, you've got a 2-hour window to react to their post. The whole activity takes you about 15 minutes. And what this does, as evidenced by some of the numbers here, is it puts rocket fuel on your content. This early activity on your posts on LinkedIn are one of the driving factors to getting mass exposure with LinkedIn. We've been playing with this. We rolled it out maybe 6 months ago. We tested it for 4 or 5 months prior to that rollout. I can tell you at a minimum, I see about a 5x. So if you're used to seeing maybe 300 people viewing your content, you could expect up to 1,500 people viewing your content. I've seen posts, frankly, that have had 25x. So in that same scenario, we're talking maybe 6,000 people seeing your content. Now, so I just want to bring this to you. It's you don't have to work directly with social advisors for something like this, but Postparty is socialpostparty.com. You'll see a little video of me explaining how it works. Typically, it's $149 a month. Attendees of the webinar for a limited time, $99 a month, no long-term commitment, and you can take advantage of as many post parties as you want or as few. At this website, there's more information. I'll go into a little more detail about how this works. But it is absolutely awesome. We tested it for a long time before we rolled it out, and it's just got such an impact on the amount of exposure that your brand and your content gets. And we'll run 30 of these a month, and you take part in as many or as few as you want to. So one of the things I'm going to send, I've got the list of the attendees, Jack. I'll send that over to you as well. One of the things I'm going to send is this free content calendar that we create for advisors, just giving you a daily inspiration on something you might want to post on social media. Absolutely free, no strings attached to that whatsoever. Just a great inspiration for content marketing. And I'll leave you my contact info. So for those of you who didn't catch Jack's email address, drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. Certainly email him for the giveaways and discount on the book. You've got my email address here. And you can visit socialpostparty.com to learn more about how Postparty works. And Jack, just checking to see. Oh, we got one more question that came while I was talking. What do I care about these people across the world? What do I care about that kangaroo farmer, that didgeridoo maker? You don't, right? So that's not obviously your target market. What they're doing, their only purpose, those 14 people that you get aligned with for the post party, those are randomized every time. We couldn't do this with a whole bunch of financial advisors. That's why our partners, our partners globally are certainly important to the success of this strategy. Those people are only there for the early activity. The added exposure, that's within the network you're building. So make sure you're building a quality network on LinkedIn. And if you use a tool like Social Post Party, you will influence those people much, much more quickly. So that's all I got. Jack, what do you think?
Well, I'm fascinated by Post Party. I took a few notes myself because this is fascinating to me. And I know that the kind of person you are and the values that you have, Charlie, and you're really keenly interested in helping your clients. You're not just trying to sell something. I know you. I know what kind of a person you are. I know your values. I know how you treat your family. So I would recommend that everybody give this a shot because you're going to deal with a lot of people who are going to offer similar things, but they're not a Charlie Van Herter. So you really need to deal with Derven. Sorry, you're going to really have to talk to Charlie about this. I think it'd be a super idea.
Jack, thank you for that plug, man. I appreciate it.
It's well deserved.
All right, Jack, again, I just want to express my sincere gratitude and thanks for you joining us today. You are a wealth of information. I haven't gotten the book. I'm going to hit you up after this and I will get the book. And I learned so much today, as I do every time we chat. So I also want to thank everybody who took a little bit of time out of their day. I hope you got the value out of this conversation that I got as well.
Sounds great, Charlie. And I have a whole series of these, so maybe we'll do a whole sequence of them for your valued attendees.
Excellent. We'll put a schedule together and make sure that we get this out in front of both of our audiences coming into 21.
Sounds great.
All right. Happy holidays, Jack.
Everyone, happy holidays to you, and thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you.